Let's make this professional sports poster design in Photoshop. So let's start by dragging in our cutouts. We have AJ Merriman as our subject. Got 3 cutouts. So we're gonna arrange these in kind of a classic big, medium, small format. So starting with this back cutout, this one is going to be our biggest. With our second cutout, so if you're ever doing hierarchy with player sizes, what I like to do is use the golden ratio to my advantage, which is 1.6. Basically, if you divide or multiply anything by 1.6, whether it's font sizes, if you're arranging hierarchy, or scale sizes for images, it tends to work out pretty well if you stay in that ratio. Don't ask me why, this is just kind of how it is. So I'm gonna arrange these cutouts so that the heads are the same size. Let's go to my scale numbers up here, and for the percentage, I'm going to divide it by 1.6. So now our medium cutout is 1.6 times smaller than the biggest cutout, and then we're going to do the same thing with our small cutout at the bottom. So I'm going to match up these head sizes, and then again going up to my free transform, divide by 1.6, and then we'll drag that cutout down in front. So now we're going to use AJ Merriman's number 5 as kind of like a background shape to divide up our cutouts. So let's make a new layer underneath all the cutouts. Hit T for our type tool, click once and hit 5. Now I'm gonna hit Command T to transform it and blow it up. And I just pull up my grids because I want to keep everything like an even 4-box margin from the edge. Let's move our bigger cutout over to the right because I don't like how we're seeing his hand stick out there. Oh, but also we have to get rid of this initial cutout had like a part of someone else's hand covering that spot, so we need to make sure he's moved down because his shorts are currently missing. I might just delete this little hand sticking out because I want to close this gap between the cutouts bodies. So let's do that. Let's put a mask on it and just with a black brush, get rid of it. And now I'm gonna hold Command and click on the 5 to put marching ants around the whole thing. And then we're gonna group our middle and big cutout into a layer together. And we'll call this big, medium. And we're just gonna hit the mask icon to basically mask them to the number 5. And now we're gonna take our brush, white brush, and brush back in basically the full upper bodies. So this was just to like basically cut them off where the 5 is being cut off. And then to go a step further in separating these cutouts, we can also take the back cutout and mask out the portion that's overlapping with the 5 down here. So let's just go to the back cutout and then on the mask, again with a black brush. Black brush is how you hide things on the mask. So it's hiding parts of the layer. I'm going to brush out this bottom portion. So I like this as the general arrangement. I'm gonna move the small cutout over a little bit. I mean, we can just center him on the whole canvas. And let's also give this small one foot shadow. So to do this, because he's in like kind of an extended pose, I'm gonna command click on his layer thumbnail to select him. And then with the new layer underneath, I'm just gonna fill it with black. And then if you go up to filter, convert for smart filters, we can now hit Command T and scale this down and even out a little bit if we want. And I almost want it like pretty horizontal. Let's do something like that. And then we can always give this a little bit of blur and fade it out. Drop down the opacity to, yeah, something like 25% should be good. And one thing I like to do with shadows like this is to make it a little bit darker where the part of his body is closer to the ground. Duplicate this with Command J. Then I'm gonna hide the whole thing with a mask. So holding Option, if you click the mask icon, that's gonna put a black mask on the layer, so it's hiding it completely. And now with a white brush, I'm just gonna brush back in with a soft brush, just the parts that are kind of closer to his feet. So you can see it's just adding a bit of darkness in the shadow. Next thing we'll do with our player cutouts is run them through Camera Raw filter. So starting with our smallest cutout, go up to filter, Camera Raw filter. And luckily all these pictures were taken in the same game by the same photographer, so the lighting conditions should be pretty similar. We should be able to copy and paste a lot of this. But just making some basic adjustments here, kind of my standard Camera Raw filter adjustments. I will increase the noise reduction just to kind of give it a smoother look and maybe a little bit of sharpening too. So if you go to the other cutouts, let's open up their folder and then hold Option and click and drag on the smart filters. We can go to cutout 2 and then same thing, hold Option, click and drag to cut out 1. And the skin tones are looking a little too yellow, so I actually want to go back into Camera Raw filter, and let's open up our color mixer. I'm just going to take the oranges and take the slider to the left. That's going to make them a little bit more red, less yellow, and I think more realistic. Also brighten them up a little bit, but that's going to feel better. And so let's take away those old Camera Raw filters from the 2 bigger cutouts and drag on the new one. And we're gonna give this number 5 some texture. To do that, I'm gonna drag in an image of the Capitol building. This is the DC breeze talking about here. So I'm just gonna blow this up pretty big. Then we'll switch the blend mode to soft light. So because it's on soft light, you don't see it on the white background, but you do see it on the blue 5. We can bring this opacity down to like 40%, I think looks pretty good. Because this design is on a white background, I kind of want to add some inner glow to all my cutouts as well. So let's go back in to, let's start with the medium cutout, go to our effects and go to inner glow. Let's set this blend mode to overlay. And you'll see it just kind of brightens the edges a little bit. I find doing this just brings a good amount more brightness to the design as a whole. So this is all looking good. Let's start adding some text. First, I'm gonna add just a big red block on this left edge. I'm just drawing it out with my rectangular marquee tool. And we're gonna use the breeze red. Hit G to fill. And I'm gonna line this up so it's exactly 2 boxes from the edge. And now another new layer, we're gonna add some text. So let's do AJ Merriman. And by the way, the font I'm using is Euro style. This we can bring down to like, I don't know, 16 or something. And I'm gonna space it out too, just to give it kind of a more interesting look. Let's go Euro style extended. I'm gonna go even smaller. Let's go to 12-point font. Hit Command J to duplicate that layer. Let's drag this one down and left justify it. This one will say number 5. And then this one, we're just gonna drag into this corner. Again, Command J will do the team name DC Breeze at the top. And see, because we have that capital texture on soft light, it is hitting this red part as well. We're getting some of that capital showing through. I kind of want more of it, or more of the building itself, to be on the red. A couple other accent elements we're gonna add. I want to add some little stars in the bottom right corner. So I'm gonna make a new layer and we'll go to our polygon tool. Now I have this already set to draw out stars. You can specify the number of size. Also have to specify the star ratio to get the specific type of star you're looking for. 47% seems like it works for me. So I'm just gonna draw out that star, hit Command J, move this one over and over again, and then we'll make 5 of these because he is number 5. Gonna group these, call them stars, and we'll shrink them down a good bit. So they're more like closer to the font size. And now because we use this left bar of red, we could move this whole 5 plus cutouts scene over to the right. So let me just select all those layers. So let's just make sure this is centered. The 5, we've got 3 white boxes there, 3 white boxes there as well. So we're kind of centering it on the right side of this design. Now for the top, we're gonna drop in a couple logos. So let's bring in AJ's personal logo, which is this really cool 5 layout guy. And then we'll bring in the DC Breeze B as well. And bring these a good bit down in size, but we want them kind of equally sized with each other. And I'm also gonna add an X in between them. So it's kind of like a Breeze and AJ collab. So let's make a new layer for our type. We've got this font called RD Signature. I'm gonna add this artificial boldness, and we can even duplicate it a couple times maybe and move it over 1 pixel. It's kind of a fake way to give some boldness to a letter, but we can just bring those into a folder, call it X, and then these logos should all be justified centrally between them. So let's group those all and call them logos. This I'm gonna center justify on the 5. So if we hold Command and click on the 5, that is going to allow us to center justify. And as far as spacing goes, I think we'll stick with the 3 box margin that we have on either side. Before we get to finishing effects, I want to fine tune the red that's on these jerseys. It's not quite the same red as the red we have on the side here, but let's bring all the cutouts together. Small cutout, big, medium. Let's just bring both those into the same folder. Call it cutouts. I'm gonna add a selective color adjustment layer, which is gonna allow us to fine tune these reds. So if you have it set to red, you can play with these. And we wanna make sure it's clipped to the cutout, so hold Option, clip this layer so it's only affecting our cutouts, and now a little less magenta, maybe a slightly darker. This feels a lot better to me than that. It's super subtle, but it will make a difference. Just with all your designs, you want to keep colors as cohesive as possible. Last thing we'll do is throw on some finishing effects. So let's make a new folder at the top, call it finishing, and we'll start with our good friend layer of grain. Fill the layer with 50% gray. Go up to convert for smart filters, noise, add noise. 10% we'll rock with for this design. And then 50%. We will also add a curves layer. This we're gonna just bring up the blacks by adding a couple points and then lifting that lowest one. I also like to brighten up the top end as well, the highlights. And then we can also drag a color lookup in here. I think 3-strip look looks pretty good. Kind of brings out those skin tones, makes the red pop a bit more, but we can tone it down to maybe 50%. Then I also want to throw on a grunge texture. So I have this one, I think this was from a photo I took, just kind of this like splotchy grunge pattern. We'll set it to multiply. I think I want the darker part of it at the top of the design. So let's rotate it around and yeah, bring it over around there. And we can lower the opacity a little bit so it's less harsh. The other thing that I see that I want to change is I want to make this 5 logo actually match this red. So let's go to our logos and open up the logo AJ. We'll just throw a color overlay on this, and we will set it to the DC Breeze red. And now before we apply our finishing effects, I'm gonna hide that layer. Let's hit Command Option Shift E to apply the whole image to its own layer. Go up to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters, and then Camera Raw Filter. We will open this back up, add some more texture and clarity. You can usually get away with it. Drop the vignetting down a bit, and you can also play with the lighting some. Shadows could probably use a bit of a boost. And that feels pretty good to me. And we'll reapply our finishing effects and we are good to go. There's your AJ Merriman sports poster. Pretty simple design, really just a matter of how you stack these 3 cutouts. But once they're in position, I feel like the whole thing really comes together, especially with this 5 in the background. That's kind of a good trick you should keep in mind. Using elements or looking to use elements that naturally split up your cutouts, especially if you're using 2 or 3 of them. If we didn't use a 5, sometimes you could use like a logo. I mean, honestly, the 5 AJ Merriman logo we could have used to kind of split the design into a couple sections. You can use shapes, circles, triangles, team logos, but it can be especially helpful to hide parts of images that you don't want included. Like that little bit of this cutouts shorts that we're missing before. Hope this video was helpful, and as always, let me know if you have any questions.